All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bucks of America podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Vance. Tonight is our first live episode of Appalachian Chase Tech Talk with That was weird because it's like I'm hearing the reverb in my ear here. It's like I hit mute, so this way I don't have to worry about that anymore. So tonight I have Justin Kilborn, I have Corey Smith, and Mike Russell. All three of them are from Appalachian Chase here. Now, everybody here has already had a chance to know who Mike is. I want to give this a brief moment here to introduce Justin and Corey. So, Corey, why don't you tell us how you guys became Appalachian Chase, what's your involvement, and tell us where you're from.
I'm from southeast Minnesota, kind of by Rochester. And to be honest, the whole way I joined Appalachian is Mike just sent me an Instagram message. And after talking with him for a little bit, I was like, these guys are some big buck killers. And I was like, I'm going to join up and hopefully learn something, really. That's kind of how I got on the team.
Sweet. How about you, Justin?
Me and Mike are from the same hometown, so we kind of known each other. And he asked me if I wanted to be on the team. I said, yeah, for sure. I mean, we help each other with deer, so why not, you know?
So do you know TJ as well? Like, did you guys all grow up together type relationship?
Nah, I didn't really know TJ until I met Mike. Then I found out about TJ.
as Mike's giving us the thumbs down here. So Corey, I'm actually from Stewartville, so I'm from your neck of the woods.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. So do you hunt in like Chatfield, Rushford?
I actually hunt by the closest town, my hometown, Spring Valley. Where I grew up hunting, my parents own like a 200-acre dairy farm.
Okay.
Kind of out that way. So that's where I usually hunt, and I got other properties now too, but that's where my roots started.
Very cool. I used to hunt over there by Chatfield, just west of there. Steve Greeley. I don't know if you know that farmer. He's got, I don't know, over 1,000 acres.
No, but anywhere by Chatfield, I know is usually pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of them hot spots.
You know, all in that area, all in section 430 or 343 is a pretty nice area. That's where I shot him at, up there over just be east of the airport.
Oh, right on. Yeah, they actually changed that. We're all one giant CWD zone now, which kind of sucks, but
yeah, I've seen that too as well. And did they bring back the like $1 per season? I know last year they did that where you can get one for white for
you can shoot one archery, one shotgun season, and one muzzleloader, yeah. Which really isn't. I mean, that's cool and all, but I don't really agree with that because around here, I don't have 3 bucks I would shoot, I guess, but it is what it is.
Definitely. All right, then. Well, thank you guys for introducing each other for about each other's for the podcast here. So why don't we get off to our first couple of questions here when we had talked about earlier. And I think, Mike, why don't you kick it off with discussing what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're chasing big bucks out there in Ohio?
I'd say the number one mistake that people make, hear it a lot, is human intrusion. Somebody gets a good deer on camera and they think they got to be in there, 24/7 every day. Obviously, a lot of people run the cell cams now, but you get people in there that want to go in there and check their camera every day, see if this deer's been in there. I think human intrusion is huge. Ohio is a baiting state, so a big thing that people do around here is they'll pour out a pile of corn, stick a camera on it. Like I said, they think they got to go in there and check the camera every day. And that's the number one way, in my opinion, to run a big deer out is a lot of people think that they're going in and maybe they're not bumping deer out, or that they're going in and just because they're not seeing deer or seeing, thinking that they're bumping deer out, 90% of the deer that you bump out, you don't know that you bumped out. So I think the number one mistake that people make around here is human intrusion. Get a good deer on camera. They think they got to be in there all the time. And really, at the end of the day, that deer knows what's going on within a couple of times of them doing that, and they're gone and off to the next property. So human intrusion would be my answer.
Definitely. Justin, do you have anything to add to that, since you guys hunt relatively the same area?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it is with human intrusion, but I've noticed with these big deer, like they're growing up on corn piles and they know what they are. They know that there's going to be someone in the tree there, so they're kind of getting used to them around here. I mean, everyone's got a corn pile, and I have a corn pile. Mike has a corn pile, but you have to around here to keep deer on your property. It seems like, because everyone's doing it. So that's kind of what I've seen from it. I mean, I wish we'd get rid of corn piles around here, but once you start something like this, I guess you can't really stop it, you know?
That's a good point, though. Mike and I brought this up in ours. Is like, once you start chipping away like your hunting rights, they're going to continue chipping away.
Mhm.
Corey and I can relate to that when it comes down to Minnesota. They've chipped away a lot of different topics.
Yeah, we can't even have mineral or nothing since it's CWD. You can't use mineral, bait. Can't even use scent, like sense attractants or whatever. Like, none of that. I don't even think you're legally allowed to use, like, you have to use artificial, like, tarsal glands, all that kind of stuff, you know, if you want to have mock scrapes.
Really?
Anymore.
They went that far?
I think, I'd have to, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that. I run a wall, since we can't have corn piles or minerals, I always do a lot of mock scrapes. So that's my way of making up for that. But
Oh, definitely. And the funny thing is too, it's like Mike's wearing Cook's attractant. He's based out of northern Minnesota. Rich Cook is just a hell of a dude. He's just a nice guy up there. And it's like, talk about throwing a wrench in his whole operation.
yeah, I've had talks with some, you know, I got a couple of good buddies I hunt with around here. Like, we hunt different properties, but, you know, bounce ideas off each other. But we all think it's just a joke, you know, like the way they went about doing it. Because I've never had a deer on my parents' property where it looked sickly. You know, they all look healthy to me. You know, all the does I've shot, bucks I've shot, they're all fine to me. So.
Oh, I agree. When I used to hunt in Minnesota and such, I'd never seen anything be affected by CWD. And the only way you're really going to notice it, unless you have the brain tested, and most people don't touch the brain or the stems or the spinal cord and spinal fluid. Everybody that I know cuts around it, because, like, what's the point of trying to get into that mess?
Yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't probably badmouth the whole CWD and DNR thing, but I just think it's dumb, because one of my good buddies just actually shot a buck in North Dakota yesterday, and he called me today, and he had to stop at a taxidermist and have him cut the skull plate off, because legally you can't transport them into Minnesota. So that cost him like another $120 just to have him cut the plate off, you know, where you don't have to worry about that any other place.
It's just weird how they have these things. And I think we have, being Wisconsin, we are the poster child of what not to do when it comes down to it. And it's all about really just taking away from the ability to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Now, from hunting here in Wisconsin, the biggest thing that I've learned so far from my 3-4 years of hunting out here is thermals. Because the hunting in these bluffs, Corey can relate to it, is that we'll have these steep inclines. We're talking 400 or 500 yards straight up, and all depending on where you all set. Like, I have a north facing slope that I hunt in the mornings, because it's like it could be almost 11 noon before the thermals will actually change and push that high air up. So you can get there early in the morning, work your way up there, and you can set in there for a long period of time. And then I just go across the street to the other side to hunt that. So as the sun comes down and as they're going out to bed, you're already above where that thermal shift will change. And that was something that I saw last year that was pretty interesting. Because, like, I'm sitting in the spot in the field here, and it's like I'm watching deer walk by me, and I know there's like a 6 or 8 pointer out there I'm hunting at, and it's like I'm just watching. And it's like I never felt that thermal change. It's like, this is actually pretty cool to actually utilize this to my advantage.
Yeah.
So what is the hardest part about hunting our prospective states and why?
You want me to start?
Sure, go for it, Mike.
Hardest part about hunting Ohio. I think Justin will agree whenever he answers. We just talked about corn piles, and I'd say that's hands down the hardest part. A lot of people think you pour out corn, and these deer come in and they eat off of it. And you sit there in a tree stand. First night you kill something, which I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does, but a lot of times these deer also use that to their advantage, where they'll make sure they come in downwind of that corn pile every time, because they know that it's not right. They know that it shouldn't be there. And how a lot of these deer learn is the bad thing with these corn piles is we have a lot of deer that get killed when they're 3 years old that have the ability to be super good deer, have good genetics, but they get killed off of a corn pile. And a lot of it is these does bring their fawns up on them. They're used to them from being fawns, yearlings, and then it gets to the point that when they're 3 years old, they've came in and they've never been shot before or shot at, and then they end up getting smacked. But the biggest difference, the hardest part, is also these corn piles, because they'll use them to their advantage. For one, they'll come in downwind. So are there a lot of deer that get smoked off corn piles that wouldn't normally get killed? Absolutely, 110%. But corn piles have altered deer movement here like you wouldn't believe, because every farm there's a corn pile on it. And some farms have 2 or 3. Depending. Some of these farmers, they'll let anybody hunt because their crops are getting damaged by the deer or whatever. So it doesn't matter who comes and knocks on their door. They want to go hunting. They're like, yeah, absolutely. My corn's getting smashed by these deer. Kill them all, kind of thing. So they these corn piles really throw off the deer here, in my opinion. And there's a saying around here: if you're not baiting, you're waiting. Because if you're not feeding, your neighbor is. Well, I can tell you where the deer are going to be, obviously. But a big thing with these deer, I think if they can make it to like 5 or 6 years old, they understand to stay away from them when it's daylight. Like, I think if they get to that 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, you're not going to kill them off of it, because they've had enough bad occurrences on it. Rather that be them coming downwind and realizing, hey, somebody's in there. But that, in my opinion, is what makes it the hardest in Ohio is the ability to bait and the corn piles, which are everywhere. And when I say they're everywhere, it's absolutely insane. The amount of corn piles here. So that's what makes it harder to kill deer, in my opinion. But I think if you know deer and know how they work and have the ability to run mock scrapes or know how to hunt deer off scrapes and understand thermals, understand hunting the wind, understand hunting bedding areas, you can really get in there and have the ability to kill a good 5, 6, 7-year-old deer. So my answer would be corn piles is what makes it the hardest to hunt Ohio. But I think if that's because these deer are brought up on as yearlings and fawns. But I think once those deer hit that 5, 6-year-old range, that's when you really find out who your good bow hunters are, in Ohio specifically. Because these deer, I'm not saying they don't come in on corn piles, but it seems like once they get to that age, they understand, hey, this isn't right, and we shouldn't come in here whenever it's daylight. And I've seen it a ton myself. And again, I'd say my answer is corn piles and 110%. And I'd say that 99% of the people you talk to from Ohio are going to give you the same answer.
Justin, why don't you go ahead and continue adding on to another tidbit there up there in Ohio?
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously a big issue here. We all knew that from the beginning, but also these big deer do get killed off corn piles when they do get that age, because they're slaves to their stomach when it gets brutally cold out there. So they do get killed off there sometimes. But also with them corn piles, people don't understand thermals and how they work and how they're getting winded. So we got big hills and big valleys around here in our part of Ohio. So a lot of people don't play to win, and them deer know to come through where the wind's going to hit them in the face, and they get winded. So I think people around here need to understand that too, and maybe not hunt the corn pile so much,
You're pretty anti-corn pile, huh?
Yeah. I like to try and get on these big deer on the scrapes and get them before they get there, because I feed them because I have to. So, you gotta feed them. You hate to feed them, but same time, if you don't, your bucks are going somewhere else, your deer are going somewhere else, and it's just the name of the game here.
I get it. I completely understand that. So, Corey, with your experience there in southeastern Minnesota, what do you think is some of the difficult things you have going on?
For me, one thing I think is difficult here is they have the shotgun season on the first weekend in November, right smack done, like right in the middle of the rut. And that's the reason, if you I've listened to a lot of podcasts and talked to a lot of people, and no one talks about Minnesota and like a higher level of the Midwestern list for big bucks. And I think that's why, because they don't get a chance. Even down around me, I have 2 or 3 really good buddies that'll probably pass up, them 3-year-old bucks to get them to 4, 5, 6, but everyone else is going to just shoot them, so I really hate that. I've seen petitions go around on Facebook to change that, and it's never going to happen. Like, they're never going to take it away. But that and the whole with the CWD thing, that's not being able to use even mineral, since they changed that. I can't usually get much for inventory on bucks in the summer or anything. Even running mock scrapes, I don't get as much action. So
what about going after and using food plots? Do you just stick with the local bean fields and cornfields you got around you?
I plant food plots. I put in some fall plots, but one major issue for me is, like I said, my parents have a dairy farm. We also have beef cattle, and actually where I hunt in the fall is pasture. So like right now there's 30 head of beef cattle out there eating on my rack fuel food plots. They're really liking them and all that. So I'm just hoping, I go out and check them about once a week and just kind of hope they aren't demolishing them. But I do put food plots in. I got a couple spots where there's no cattle, and there's one that
Hey everyone, Jake with HHA. Super excited to introduce the Tetra and Tetra Max Rise. The Tetra Max and the Tetra Rise is our new 2-pin vertical bow sight that we're coming out with here for this year. So you'll notice a couple things on it. It's very similar to our single pin platform that we've had here over the last 25 years, and really similar to the other sights in the Tetra line. So what we basically did was we took our single pin technology and we merged that with some multi-pin technology. So the way we built our Tetra and Tetra Max Rise sights was we basically dropped a second pin in that vertical pin coming up from the bottom, and then we added a second indicator on the yardage wheel. So both of those are fixed. One really nice thing with this setup is you sight in at 20 and 60 with the top pin, and you don't have to worry about the second pin at all. That second pin and second indicator will automatically be on. So really nice feature there. The Tetra Rise and Tetra Max Rise are gonna come in 8 different frame options. So 4 in the Tetra Max Rise, 4 in the Tetra Rise. Both are gonna come in the fixed Hunter Edition frames. So the Tetra Hunter Edition frame, the Tetra Max Hunter Edition frame, as well as the Hoyt Picatinny mounts in both the Tetra Max and the Tetra Rise, as well as the long dovetail and then the short dovetail bar option that I have on the Matthews bridge lock system. So all the dovetail options within the Tetra and Tetra Max Rise are going to be compatible with Matthews bridge lock system. So within both of these product lines, you're going to get a lot of different options as far as which sight you want to go with. So you're going to get your choice of a yellow or red second pin. Red is going to be the standard second pin color, but you can choose to go with the yellow option as well. And then both will be available in either a 10 or a 19 thousandths pin. All scope housing sizes are 1 inch and 5/8, and we do have the same front end that we've had on the Tetra line since 2020 with the macro gain adjustments as well as your micro adjustments as well for windage. New on the Tetra Rise this year, you're going to notice that there is a new needle carrier. So this needle carrier obviously has the 2 indicators, but you will see that it is a red anodized needle carrier to really call out where your needles are at. On the Tetra and Tetra Max Rise, we'll be able to achieve longer distances. So we have built the longest tape sets that we've ever offered in our company's history. So guys are going to be able to get out to 120, 130, 140, 150, and in some situations even farther depending on your arrow setup. So just making sure that we're getting arrow clearance, but really nice feature to be able to just step out in the backyard or head out to the 3D course to shoot out to some of those longer distances. On the hunting side of things, this is one of the nicest hunting sights that we have ever built. It does have reasonable pin gap spacing with a 1/4 inch spacing. That way, you know, if that deer runs out from 20 to 35, your second pin's on. So the most commonly asked question that I've had so far as we went through this whole setup process is, where does that second pin sit? Well, that second pin is going to vary depending on the different arrow setups that you do shoot. Closest answer I could give you is the most common is going to be somewhere between 32 and 40 yards, depending on how fast your bow is. So you'll likely be somewhere between that 32 to 40 yards with that second pin if the first one's at 20. So along with all other HHA products, the Tetra Rise and the Tetra Max Rise carry a 100% lifetime warranty. All products are 100% made in the USA. For more information, you can visit our website at hhasports.com.
Did really well, so hoping that one stays the way it is. But I always find that I have like a unique situation because no one else I know or hunts like legit pasture land, you know. So
Completely understandable, because especially when you're in that driftless area there, because for Mike and for Justin there, the driftless area for the Midwest kind of starts right in that Rochester area, and as you continue moving westward or eastward, that's where you're gonna run into that's where it kind of begins. We start seeing these peaks and valleys, especially as you get closer into Rushford, then Winona, then La Crosse, and then it goes pretty much all the way out to the Dells. It's a pretty good range, and then it goes just south from there. Not north and up there. But yeah, what I used to hunt Minnesota, hunting the rut when you're trying to go bow hunting, that was kind of the big issue, because it's like that's the only state that I'm aware of that does not give the bow hunters an opportunity to hunt the rut, from my experience. Because pretty much
it's the only one I know of. Yeah, because even Wisconsin, I think, doesn't start till the last week of November.
Correct. Yeah. Usually the 9-day hunt begins over Thanksgiving. Then we have the October youth hunt. That's only a weekend though, so that's not that big a deal. Then everything kind of changes from there. Then we go back, and then we have holiday hunts. Then we also have a muzzleloader season too as well. But for pretty much from November until December 31st, there's some form of a gun hunting going on, whether it be muzzleloader or shotgun. Now, where Corey and I hunt at was only shotgun. Only you have to go way up north to go use a rifle. But even still up there with the bears, the wolves, and stuff like that, I don't hear very many big bucks being shot out of that area.
No, they're there. There's the same buddy that shot the deer in North Dakota. He actually currently lives in Duluth, and last year he was going after ended up being one of the family, wherever he was hunting, one of the family friends' like son. It was the first buck he ever shot. I think it was a 160 or 170, big
Wow.
dark horn northern buck. It was a stud. So congrats to that. That's a good first buck. But they get big up there sometimes. But yeah.
So what do you guys do in your respective seasons to take advantage to either whether it be gun hunting, weather?
Well, since I'm already talking, but like for me, especially now, I have a 1.5-year-old son. So like my whole thing to take advantage of the season is I just wait for cold fronts. before, you know, kind of like they were talking about earlier, you know, intrusion. I just stay out of my spots until I know it's good, kind of thing. So I like, if it's going to be a good cold front, you're going to find me in a tree. If I have to hire a babysitter or call in sick, I'm going to be in a tree.
For sure. How about you, Justin?
Oh, with gun season and stuff, I stay out my areas and just feed. I know that like a lot of when the gun season comes in, I know it's going to push a lot of deer on my property because I don't gun hunt. I try to stay away from it now because I got addicted. I got the bow bug, I guess you'd say. So yeah, a lot of my big deer get pushed in there that I hunt around that gun season, and I hunt cold fronts too. But yeah, I try to stay out of there as much as I can. But, yeah.
How about you, sir? How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm anti-gun also. I'm not anti-gun in the sense that I'm pro-gun. I love guns, but when it comes to killing deer, I'm a bow guy. I lose good deer every year to gun hunters, and nothing against it as long as everybody's obviously abiding by their state laws. But I think it means a little bit more whenever you smack one with your bow versus reaching out there and poking one at 200 yards with a gun. So mine's the same way. The main farm I hunt's 181 acres, and I have it to myself, and there is a lot of pressure that goes on when gun season kicks in on the neighboring property. So same thing. I have a lot of deer that get pushed into me, and they just see it as a safe haven, more or less, safe zone. There's never any guns that are cracking or going off in there. So a lot of these deer that live in that area, or have been there for 3, 4, 5 years, they understand if when the guns start cracking, they can come over to the farm that I'm on, and they're not going to have anybody shooting at them per se. So again, that's something I do is when gun season rolls around, I'm in the tree with my bow, and just try to keep things as safe for the deer where they feel as safe as they can feel. So again, I just stay out of there when gun season rolls around. I do my thing and keep the pressure off my farm, and a lot of times that'll push deer on it, and they do stay there after gun season, obviously, just because they feel safer.
Good to know. So just to wrap things up here, then, what do you guys all use for releases? Trigger or thumb release or back tension?
I use trigger. Justin?
I use thumb release.
Corey?
I actually just switched back to trigger. I had a thumb release, and it failed, and I punched myself in the face 3 times. So then I threw it into the woods, and I just went back to, I think it's true. I don't know. I just went back to a trigger release. I'm like, no.
So
It
since
pissed me off.
definitely, I also use thumb release as well. So Mike and Corey, since you guys both use triggers, what are some of the advantages of using the trigger?
I'll tell you what.
For me, well,
go ahead, Corey.
You go. Well, like for me, like my thumb release, it failed. Like it wasn't me hitting the release to start off with. Like it wasn't I shot a thumb release for like 2 years. And after that, I honestly noticed when I switched that I wasn't shooting as well. So I switched back to the trigger thing. And I don't know if it's just, I got it set up like you're supposed to, where you just squeeze through kind of deal. I don't know if it's just I couldn't adjust after, I shot trigger release for over 10 years, so I switched to thumb and I just couldn't make the adjustment. But I can shoot either or, but I just prefer the trigger now that I went back to it.
Definitely. How about you, Mike?
Honestly, it's the only thing I've ever used ever since I'm 32 now, and I didn't get big into bow hunting until, honestly, probably I bow hunted in high school, but once I graduated high school was when I actually got big into it, and it's all I've ever used. So it's obviously something I feel comfortable with, and I've just never changed. I'm comfortable with shooting a trigger, and I feel that I shoot well enough to get it done and put deer on the ground. So I've never experimented with other releases.
Nice. This is fun because we actually have a 50-50 crowd here. So Justin,
Yeah.
so why do you like the thumb?
Well, I switched from actually a thumb this year from a trigger this year, and it's made a night and day difference with me. Was shooting. I had that, I guess you call it target panic is what it was called, because I don't know. I just felt like I was punching the trigger. I was just punching it, and I started with the what is that release called? The knock to it, my knock on.
Yes.
Oh, so yeah, I started shooting that a little bit, and honestly, I love that release. And then I went to just a straight thumb, and I just been shooting great with it. And I don't know, just something about with it being in my hand too. I don't know, it's more comfortable for me.
That makes sense. See, when I first started shooting archery, I started with the first few months. I was using a trigger release, just because it was new. I wanted that security with it, but what got me was how it fit around my wrist, and it just wasn't comfortable. Didn't feel natural for me. So when I switched to using a thumb release, it was just a natural fit because I was able to consistently anchor. I was able to come into my peep consistently. It was very comfortable, a lot of control for it. And then now I've just this year alone, I bought 3 new thumb releases. Otherwise, I've been using a TrueFire Edge for so long. But then Dudley came out with a video about how you should use a thumb release. And the way it works is that you just simply take your thumb, you drape over the top of it, and as you pull back, it should pull back with you. And then this way, so what I do is I'll anchor it, get into position, and then I bring my thumb over the top of it, and then I just pull. And it's that's the way he made it sound. So then it's like, well, I got this new hot shot release. Went in there, manipulated the sensitivity with it, so it's like you can blow on it, just sets off. I'm talking like a pound of pressure, it will go off. And that's what I do now. I just bring it up. Once I get anchored, bubbles leveled out, just continue pulling back, and just let it go. Because you don't have to even actually have to pull it back, which is something that kind of defeats the purpose of a back tension. But it's like, if you prefer the back tension, go for it. I know Silverback from Dudley is the back tension release where you just keep pulling and pulling until it goes off from there.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I have now. Yeah, the Silverback. Yeah, I couldn't remember what it's called, but yeah,
definitely. So
yeah, I love that release. Mike
proposed a good question. How has hunting changed in your area in the last 10 years? So, Mike, do you want to start this conversation off?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd asked about some questions that you feel we could be insightful about, and different technical questions, and that was one that came to my mind. Like I said, I didn't start bow hunting until I started like when I was in high school, but I didn't get real serious about it until after I'd graduated. So I was around 20 years old. I think the big thing that's changed over the last 20 years, or the last 10 years, sorry, is I think bow hunting, specifically in our area, is very social media driven. There was a day where, every good 4-year-old that walked in to a corn pile, as we've mentioned, because everybody baits. There was a day that every good 4-year-old that came in that was, say, 140 inches, he got smoked. But now, everybody wants to take a picture of themselves holding a nice buck so they can put it on Instagram or put it on Facebook. And I think that's been a big part of how things have changed around here. I mean, obviously we still have our own issues in terms of baiting, and everybody's got a corn pile. And there's a lot of people that kill deer off corn piles that they're not bow hunters, but they think they are, kind of thing. I've said if you take corn away for a year, you'll find out who the real bow hunters are around here. But it's too much of a moneymaker kind of thing. But the big thing that's changed in the past 10 years, in my opinion, is I think social media has made bow hunting better, and the fact that 10 years ago, everybody wanted just to be able to take a picture with a buck and say, hey, look what I killed. I shot a 120-inch deer. Hey, I killed a buck. It didn't matter how big it was. But I think now it's the point where I think deer are bigger, in my opinion, now than they were 10 years ago. And I take that in the sense of, as Corey had said, you can't do minerals or baiting in Minnesota. I think the amount of people that put mineral out, especially in Ohio, in the area that I'm from, it does wonders for the deer herd. It just does. I mean, you think about it, there's mineral sites on every farm, and these does are coming in whenever prior to having their fawns through the lactation process, and they're hitting these mineral sites up, and it's not doing anything but benefiting these deer. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. And I think now versus 10 years ago, you have 2, 3, 4 times as good of a chance to run into a true giant in the woods than you did 10 years ago. And I think a lot of that is social media driven, and now nobody wants to take a picture holding a 120-inch deer and saying, hey, look, I killed a 120-inch 3-year-old. Now it's a competition. You got to be better than your buddy. You got to be better than the guy that's hunting down the road. If the guy down the road shoots a 150-inch deer, you got to shoot a 160-inch deer because he got 110 likes on his picture on Facebook. But if I shoot a 160, I might get 111. So I think that's a big thing that's changed over the last 10 years is social media has impacted deer hunting, specifically bow hunting, in such a manner that, now people are letting these 120s and 130s walk because they'd rather kill a 150 or 160. That way they can get more likes on Facebook, more hits on Instagram, and they'll sleep better at night. It's my opinion on what's changed the most in the last 10 years.
That is a good point of view right there. So, Justin, how about yourself, sir?
And 10 years ago, I was 14 years old, so I just got my compound. I shot my first doe with a bow. So in the last 10 years, how it's changed, though, if I can really think about it, is honestly deer drives. I remember when I was just young, and they used to call us the Dirty 30. So we had 30 guys out there driving deer. That's kind of, it's not slacked down in a sense. We see more people gun hunting and driving than probably ever this year, which is kind of weird. But I know our family group's getting smaller. Everyone's getting smaller with just driving. And because I know around my farm, it used to be in the back in the day, you just come over and my uncle wanted you to shoot them all because they're crop damage and all that. So I think the deer drives definitely has went down in the numbers for sure around here.
How about you, Corey?
In the last 10 years for Minnesota, man, they changed the rules around here a lot. Like that's what I was thinking when I first started bow hunting. I'm about the same as Mike. I started bow hunting like right out of high school, kind of got into it, and you could shoot $5 total. So either 5 does or four does and $1. But then they changed that every year since I started. And at one point it was down to only 2 deer. And then the one thing that changed, they did have a point restriction for 2 years. And I wish they would have kept that. It was a 4-point side restriction. They only had that for 2 years. They took it away. And then now we have CWD, and it's pretty much the last 3 years, it was $2.50 for a bonus tag, and you can buy as many as you wanted. So come shoot all the deer kind of thing, but which kind of hurt. I used to have, I still at my parents' property and the properties I hunt, just because I can go buy 20 doe tags doesn't mean I'm going to shoot 20 does. I kind of manage it what I think's right, but that's changed a lot. Like our deer herd has changed from it. Like I used to go hunt and see 10, 15 does a night come out on an alfalfa field. Now, if I see 4 or 5, that was a pretty good night, kind of thing. But that's one thing, since I started bow hunting, the rules in Minnesota and laws and all that have changed a lot. But that's about it for that.
Nice. So that is a pretty great question to ask, Mike, because this should be my 10th year, or next year will be my 10th year, one of the two, since I've started bow hunting and such. And when I first started here 10 years ago in Minnesota, where I hunted over in their area, I was able to get 5 tags. Then we had the the cold winter of 2013, that was like in Rochester, to give people a point of reference, 99 days below zero. Then you go up to Minneapolis, it was like 119 days below zero, wiped out the herd horribly, just destroyed it everywhere. Then we come back into 2015, still two, and then now it's been with the CWD and such like that in Minnesota. It's like it's just run rampant now. Hunting over here in Wisconsin, like this is they've been really it's much more geared towards the bow hunter. And what I've really seen and really appreciated is the bow technology nowadays. Is like you can buy a bow in the last 10 years and you're splitting hairs between everything, because they're very, very fine tuned, unless you get into the older like Bear and Diamond and stuff like that. The ones that are a little bit lower end, but you get into the Matthews and the Elites and Athens, and you're splitting hairs between them. Like that's a 2017 bow, and I just keep on upgrading the strings on it, and it still shoots to over 280 from a string setup and stuff like that. Nowadays, if you get 280 consistently, that's a good bow. And most of the IBOs haven't gone much past than 350. Now the thing is, like, there's been a real big focus on less movement, like advanced outdoor advancing technology. He came up with a release holder for thumb releases now. So this way, it's instead of having in your pockets, because as the winter progresses, it gets colder and colder. Well, he figured out a way, sitting in Ohio, oddly enough, hunting with Chad Mendez, is that he figured out that, hey, like, why don't I put my thumb release on my bow so this way that it's not in any of my pockets, because like I can relate to as a bow hunter, because there's a lot of them. Then you also have new technologies about carrying your bow to your spot. Like you got the bow hitch from Armando that he came out with his 2 years ago, where it hooks to your bino pack or your harness, and it hits right there in your whatever your high you hold your bow with. And if you do it right, you can actually set yourself up to where you can leave it knocked in and is ready to rock and roll. But as you're walking, you can move forward. And then Bow Spider came with his stuff here a few years further back. So technology overall has just been very nice for the kids to get into it and really go from there, because you can get a bow for, like, I bought my daughter a bow this year, and we'll probably get at least 4 or 5 years out of it as she grows through everything, go through her growth spurts and such. Because right now it's a 10-pound draw and it max is 70 pounds, which is a heck of a range. And then once she becomes more and more serious, some of that, and she starts making her own money, well, then we can take her out in different places to look at different bows.
Yeah.
So folks,
man, crazy.
Let's go right ahead, Corey. Sorry about that.
I was just when your first bow that everyone else with, but when for the first year I bow hunted, I had a handgun Bear archery compound bow that was as tall as I was. You know, I can't remember the name of it, but like you said, the advancement and tech in these bows is crazy.
Definitely, yeah. Because for an example, like that's an Impulse 31 from Elite. That bow right now is $300. IBO is $340 off of it, but still $300 is a great way to get somebody into archery. Yeah. Just all of us here, speaking from experience, is that I won't buy a used bow unless I know how old that bowstring is, because if I'm buying that bow and that string is like 2-3 years old, well, that's another $175 on top of that bow purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts before we call it a night, folks?
Hey, I got one final thought. We give TJ a hard time on our on our team. He gets it on us. He dishes it out, so we give it back to him. But I tell you what, obviously TJ's my cousin, so we grew up together, and obviously known him my whole life. TJ, if you're listening to this, you're one of the most dedicated people I know. But he's hunting Delaware right now. He randomly sent us a message, said he is going hunting Delaware. So and he sent us a picture of a buck on Delaware public land. That's actually a pretty good deer. So although we give him a hard time, TJ, if you're listening, good luck. We call him the Delaware Deacon.
Just shoot straight, TJ. That's all that's all I got to say.
We don't know what he's going to hit, but he's going to hit something.
That's awesome. Well, all right, guys. Thank you for being on this podcast with it. This is our first Tech Talk with the Appalachian Chase. So tune in next week for another episode, and we'll be talking about other topics. So please feel free to drop comments or chats in the Facebook Live, and I will gladly answer them from there. But I want to say thank you to you three gentlemen for coming on, and it was fun.
Heck
Thanks
yeah.
for having me.
Good time.
Excellent.